All right. Hello, everyone. I figured I would take an opportunity to kind of give a bit of a brief update, or what I'm hoping will be a brief update anyway. I don't want this to turn into an incoherent rambling, but for those of you who have been following along, I kind of wanted to just explain what direction I'm planning on going in with the knives and what's happening here in the shop. So, I'm actually going to take you to a corner of my garage that was not explored in the shop tour video. So this is my CNC machine. I haven't really spoken a whole lot about it. At the very least, I haven't spoken about it on the channel. This is a machine that's reasonably new to me, but I've actually had it quite a bit longer than some of you may realize. So this is a ShopBot desktop CNC, and I've had this guy, I want to say, since March or February of this year. And it was something that I got, something that I tinkered around with quite a bit right at the beginning and thought that it was incredibly cool. I was super excited about the ways that this thing was going to change the workflow of my shop, yada, yada, yada. I did not realize a few different things. One, this was a lot more difficult for me to learn by myself than I anticipated. I know that there are countless online resources for learning these things, but there isn't really a ton of stuff for knife makers. I know there's a few courses that you can pay for that are knife specific, but for me, I wasn't really in a position to go that route. I did try and execute a few woodworking projects when I first got this reasonably successfully. But for any of you who have machined anything, you know that end mills are very expensive. The material that you are milling could potentially be very expensive as well. Not just necessarily in terms of wear and tear on tools, but quite literally the material itself. And given the fact that the majority of my knife making experience was with G10, which is a notorious material to mill, I kind of put this down for a little while. It was one of those things that it became intimidating rather quickly between learning the software, learning how to, or what end mills to use, speeds and feeds, and dust collection and all this stuff that I got to a point where I'm like, this is too much. I decided to put it down for a little while, but at the same time, there was a huge portion of things that I had made in the past that, like, I had worked with a bunch of different materials, and ultimately I settled on G10 because it was something that, from an abrasive perspective, was reasonably easy for me to grind. For anyone who's made knives before or has worked with G10, it's not an easy material to cut because it's laminated fiberglass. But in terms of grinding it away, it's very easy. Now, there's a whole lot of health issues that may stem from breathing those things in and so on and so forth. But ultimately, it's a very easy material to work with on the grinder. Now, I've always hated working with things like micarta and Richlite and let's see, I'm sure there's a few other materials. Those are the big ones. Reason being, when you grind them, they burn rather quickly if your abrasives aren't fresh. So it has a tendency to get pretty expensive rather quickly. And for me, I just pretty much turned away from those materials immediately. I know there's a few of you who might have seen that on my product listings. I did have micarta, things like that, but I would make them in such small quantities because to be quite honest, it really kicks your ass. So they're kind of a material that I basically have mentally dismissed in a lot of different ways. But after I got the CNC, I had the epiphany. I'm like, well, I'm not grinding this stuff anymore. I'm going to be cutting it. And that's when I started doing a lot more research on Richlite and the environmental benefits and the personal health benefits and the performance value out of it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is an actual potential avenue for me to take. And I kind of dove nose first into it after that. And it was basically a long, tiresome 3 weeks that I had spent working on getting this material up to speed, sourcing 3D models, all that stuff. And I love it. I absolutely love Richlite now. And some of you might have already seen the Polywog. And that is, of course, the newest model here. And this is my personal one. And this is sporting the natural Richlite with brass hardware with ABL stainless steel, 16th inch thick. And this was kind of my introduction into CNC work. Reason being, it's a very simple handle. It's almost kind of like a broomstick handle. Of course, there's a little bit of a peak here, which is actually the widest part of the blade. But after I milled these, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I could do something a little bit more complicated. And the biggest chunk of this shop update comes in the form of this guy here. And for those of you know, the chitons, the nymphs, the agates, the sedges, the brambles, all of those guys utilize this handle shape. And they're kind of like the bread and butter of waxwing, where I've made so many of these guys that I figured it was time that I start offering more handle options for these. And I try to mill them within plus or minus 0.02 of an inch. And so far, I've been pretty successful in doing that. Now, ultimately, the goal is to be able to offer handle scales that are fully customizable for what I call the mini series and for the Polywog as well, and eventually transition over to the Aspen and the Sprout and have those guys with milled Richlite handle scales. Not entirely. I'm not giving up on G10, but a huge chunk of them moving forward will be made with these milled scales. Now, the other thing about that too is the direction that I'm trying to go in general is I want to start offering blades that are a little bit more customizable. I don't want to have a like a shop option, so to speak, that allows you to customize a blade to order. I'm just going to make and then list on the site what I feel might be appropriate for the week based off of what I've made a lot of or haven't made a lot of, and kind of go in that general direction. But recently, I've learned. I've gotten a lot of feedback recently about people really disliking sharpening choils. I know there's a lot of folks who like them, and like anything else, for every group of people that really like and enjoy something, there's going to be a group of people that pretty much despise it. And for a small blade, I fully understand why people might not like sharpening choils. I've had plenty of experiences with them where, yeah, they can be a little bit cumbersome. So ultimately, my plan is moving forward is to kind of start offering a lot of different colors and Richlite milled options that you can purchase separately, mill out for $20, which I'm trying to keep that as cheap as I possibly can for everyone, because I know that everything in general is getting more and more expensive. So I'm just trying to offer something reasonably affordable. And I'm going to start offering, some personal takes in terms of removing the sharpening choil and handle scale options, things like that. So that way, if it's not necessarily like a customizable option, but it's something that at checkout, people will be able to see, okay, there are a lot of different options between colors, handle materials, sharpening choil, no sharpening choil, that sort of stuff, because I don't want people to be locked into something that they don't like. I know that hunters and fishermen hate sharpening choils because, either line gets snagged or they get snagged on pelts, whatever it might be. So we're going to do away with those in the future as an option. And aside from that, I'm going to kind of keep moving along with the CNC. It's something that's reasonably new to me still, but I'm kind of learning the ropes rather quickly. Prototyping is moving along a lot faster. Like this was the prototype for those scales. You can kind of see there's some unsightly marks there from an error that I had made with some of the tool paths. But ultimately, I think that's going to be the direction that I take things in. Also, there are, of course, I kind of touched on it briefly before, there are just a lot of health benefits to working with, I shouldn't say health benefits. There is no health detriments to working with Richlite as long as you're wearing proper PPE, whereas G10, the same can be true, but I mean, you come in the shop here, and this is just a personal thing. Now, I like to think I keep my shop reasonably clean. I don't really do a whole lot to prep for these videos in this sense, but if you come over here, these Scotch-Brite belts that have been sitting for a while, I'm not sure if you could see the dust that's currently floating in the air off of them, but maybe if I plug my light in here, you might be able to see the all the dust floating through the air. And Steel particles stink. They sink through the air rather quickly. G10 tends to stick on surfaces and float around for a while. So as long as I intend on doing this, I'm going to try to migrate away from that material, at least in terms of that being the exclusive option. So just kind of wanted to pop in here for a minute, talk about what I'm doing, and clue you guys in on how I plan on kind of expanding some options for you in the future. So hopefully this gives someone valuable insight and it wasn't just one long incoherent rambling. But yeah, I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for watching.